Well, it looks like this software has a mind of its own. Here we are, all three of us. I didn't even do anything. It just did it by itself. Welcome to Virtual and Socially Distant Sevens. I'm SevenSpot's Phil, along with SevenSpot Jim. Hello, SevenSpot Jim.
Hello, SevenSpot Phil.
And we have our special guest. He's the editor and publisher of Southern Driver magazine, Ted Theodore. And Ted, I guess just to kick this off, you've owned a lot of cars, right?
I have. That's correct. About 115.
115.
Yep.
But I'm going to take a wild guess that your favorite of all 115 has got to be the 7.
You know, it's interesting. It is. But also, it's the very next one because there's always a new excitement with the new car, modifications. But in this case, the next one's probably going to be another Lotus 7.
Awesome. So let's get right to it. And I'm going to put you on full screen here, and you can show us what you've got going on there.
Very good. I started racing back in 1981. My very first car was an MGA, and I just had a fascination with cars. I bought them, traded them, sold them, started racing and hill climbs and track events in the Southeast. Kind of ran out of money and started getting offered rides in dirt track cars, asphalt cars. But my passion was still road courses like Road Atlanta. So I found my way back to sports car racing and had a lot of fun with that for many years. Got out of it for a while my son was born and growing up. And when he got old enough that I could start racing with him again, I got back into it. I had a lot of different cars, a lot of different types. But one of my passions ever since I was 7 years old was Shelby Cobras and Lotus 7s. They've always been a fascination with me. I'm a big fan of sports car history, and so I always dreamed one day of having a Cobra. I always dreamed of having a Lotus 7, and I have one Cobra now, and I've had 5 different Lotus 7s and looking at another one. So there's always each one brings a new excitement and new ideas, new modifications, and new driving pleasures. And the best part, meeting a lot of wonderful people.
Well, that's awesome. Now, my own personal experience is riding in SevenSpot Jim's 7, and it really feels like you're riding in a race car, even if you're on the road. Now, do you find, does that ever concern you that you're in that very small vehicle surrounded by all these monster trucks, cars, SUVs, and things?
Yeah, it's interesting. The present car that I have is not a full race car. It's a street car, Westfield 7 SE. It's extremely light. The chassis, if you strip everything off of it just down to the chassis weighs 140 pounds. Interestingly enough, the original Lotus 7 chassis only weighed 80 pounds. So it's a very, very lightweight car. Driving on the interstate, I'm looking eye to eye with lug nuts on 18-wheelers. It's a scary feeling. But the fact is if you're in a wreck, it's not going to make that much difference if you're in another type car than another. I worked EMS reserves for several years and saw a lot of accidents and saw what happens with cars. I've got roll bars in mind to protect me so that it will move the car sideways and not encroach. And I'm careful where I drive it. I also teach classrooms for street survival for teen driving courses to kind of help hopefully improve driving and the road safety for the future as well. So, but it's a wonderful feeling having the exhaust about 36 inches away from your ear, having a light feeling of the car that if you lift your right hand, the right front wheel comes up off the ground. It's the designers of the Miata called it Digita Ambai, which is rider and horse are one. And that's the feel you get with a Lotus 7.
Well, I'll bet you do, because you are really low to the ground. And there's not much around you to separate you from the automobile, right?
That's correct.
You get the feeling you feel every small nuance of the road is transmitted right through your body, right?
Very definitely. And it gives you a good feel. I am 6'4" and I weigh about 260. So I provide some of the downforce for my race cars, unfortunately. But in the process of getting this Lotus 7, the Westfield, it's certainly made for a lighter, smaller driver. And the particular model I got was purchased from England as a kit and brought into the first and only distributorship for Westfield in the United States as a demo car. And they used it to show what it could do in competition between other kit cars back in the 90s. One of the interesting things I found out when I got the car is that the driver's side, the left side, is wider than the passenger side. And they designed it that way because it wasn't really intended to have a passenger. This car was really as a demo and more for competition. So they gave the driver more room on the driver's side. On top of that, someone had scalloped inside the seat a little bit to the left and right with a sledgehammer and smoothed out the bodywork, so I've got a little more hip room. So it fits me exactly like a race car seat. It's a feeling where you feel any vibration, any bumps in the road, anything changing on the car or suspension, you got a really good feel for it.
Awesome. Do you want to show us the car?
Sure, absolutely. This is, again, the Westfield 7. This particular model was brought in by Ted Straight at a time where he was living in Connecticut, and a gentleman helped build it and built the engine for it. It's very Spartan, very much like the original Lotus 7, true to form. Everything is lightweight. It's dumbed down. This is a pre-litigation 7, so it's before Lotus filed suit against Caterham and against Westfield for knocking off their car. As that is the way it is, everything is very much like the original, except for the original had aluminum body, where this one has a slightly heavier chassis and the body is fiberglass. One of the things they did particularly on this one was when they built it, they wanted it to have a very strong power plant. So they found that the Corolla from 1972, it's a 3TG twin cam. The ones that were made in Japan, the Corolla engines were stronger. They had the twin cam and they were able to be modified. So it kind of became the holy grail for kit cars motors. This one was modified by Robert Glenn, and they built the car in 1994. Did a beautiful job. It drives excellent, very quick, very lightweight. The wheels they chose for it are original from Westfield, but they're a little bit on the heavy side. So when I got it, I actually had another set of wheels from another Westfield I had that are original Westfields and very, very light. These are extremely light. So when I take it to autocrosses, I use those wheels. But again, everything on the car is very original. All the parts and pieces, all the weight and the feel of the car are very similar. It has a fuel cell in the back under a snap-on cover. The rear end is a Datsun 1200 competition rear end. It had a limited slip, and I'm actually having that rebuilt so that we can get back to that LSD feeling. But it handles beautifully, very lightweight, very controlled. When I was racing the Westfield Megabusa, I found out, particularly with hill climb, that the way these cars are designed, the shape is very much like a rectangle. And when you're racing and you're in a car that's closer to a square, when you lose control, it spins in a circle. With a rectangle, you have much more time to react and get control of the car. You just lift a little on the throttle and it drops back into place. So I very much like the Lotus 7s, particularly for racing, because of that feel and because of the weight of the car. It doesn't like to be gently handled. It takes throwing it around, and it takes it. You're not going to lose control of it as easily as you'd think. Very nimble, very secure feeling inside it. And like I said, I'm a big guy, but I pour in there very nicely, and it fits very comfortably.
Now, would you class that car when you're sitting in it? Is it close to the ideal 50-50 weight balance?
No, it's not actually. In fact, not very many of the Lotus 7s are because of having so much engine up closer to the front of the car. That said, the way that the chassis is designed and the way the suspension is, it adapts for that. So even though it doesn't have the weight balance that most racers want to achieve, it still has a pretty good polar center. And it has, like I said, a very neutral feel by nature. You can add in understeer or oversteer as to your personal likes or dislikes as a racer, but for just driving pleasure as it is, it's fine.
So how do you have yours set up then for steering?
Mine actually is fairly neutral. For the race car that I have, the Westfield Megabusa, that was a Hayabusa powered one. I had it a lot closer to 50-50. When you add in roll bars and all the additions for the car, you can add in a lot of weight and can move things around a lot easier. But since this is actually a street car and not a full roll caged race car, it's a little harder to play with that much weight.
Well, it looks very impressive. Really nice.
It's
Jim,
been
do you
a,
have any questions you want to ask Ted about the car?
No, I'm just looking at it and I'm totally loving it. And everything he said is exactly right. I mean, the feeling of security when you're driving it is great. Although I do also do have the boost in my Demon, and sometimes, and the best control I can have over the car is my right foot.
Yeah.
well, it's interesting. The Westfield Mega Booster that I had, I've got a picture of it over here. This is the car as I began hill climbing it. I don't know if you can see that picture very clearly.
Oh, yeah.
But of course, it has the full cage. It's got wide track suspension, added additional 6 inches on each corner. Very neutral handling, and with the Hayabusa engine, we had it built. It was a real screamer. And from this point, I started adding on aerodynamics to it, adding a front wing and then a rear wing from APR, diffuser. And the more things we did, the faster you could go through turns with it. So just a great handling car. I had a crazy idea after I hill climbed it, won a few hill climbs and classes and won a few championships, that it might do good in a big hill climb. So I actually loaded it up and took it all the way up to New Hampshire and ran the Mount Washington Hill Climb in 2014. My belief is that a lightweight car like that would do extremely well, because the balance of the car and the way that the car was built for a 7.2 mile hill climb would be really, really a nice feel. So I took it up there and ran it. And what I found out was I brought a knife to a gunfight. Basically, a light car like that can't stay down on a road that's rough and has part of it, 1 mile of it, that's dirt. So the back end of my car was jumping up around in the air, skittering around, and I was really close to the edge a number of times on the hill. There's drop-offs of 200 and 300 yards on each side in some sections of the course, and they had a helicopter following me up the hill. I thought it was really cool that I'd be on TV, and then I realized he was following me because he thought I was about to go off the hill.
Oh, that's nasty.
But it was a total joy driving the Megabusa. Thoroughly enjoyed the car. The group that I had working on the engine fork did a beautiful job. And in the process of about 8 years, I won several championships in the Southeast, 2 championships in the Pennsylvania Hill Climb Series up north, won King of the Hill, and like I said, a good number of championships with it. Had a lot of fun, met a lot of great people. Obviously, at that level of amateur racing and track events, you get a few track records and you enjoy your car, and that's wonderful, but you find out the best part is the people you meet along the way. And at every event, there was always Lotus 7 people that wanted to come by and talk.
Well, yeah, that's definitely the case, isn't that, Jim? You notice the same thing, right?
Yeah, I just said, yep, that's right. Yeah. One thing about, if you got a Lotus 7, you got a low cost, you got any derivative, you're noticed. And it is a tribe, believe it or not.
Well, that's awesome, Ted.
When I was 7, I had a slot car of a Shelby Cobra, and it was blue with white racing stripe, and it had a specific set of bumpers and a specific set of wheels, and I loved it dearly and dreamed one day maybe I could get that car. Never would have believed it's true. And not only now do I have one, a Factory 5, I also have a second one, which is a little smaller, for my grandson. The maintenance on his is a lot cheaper, trust me.
Yeah, no doubt. But I would think that one would be even scarier to drive in real traffic.
Definitely.
I'm not taking that up a hill.
I'm with you. Well, I also have a classic Mini that I got recently, and I'm having a 1275 race motor put in it and thinking about caging it. I also have a Fiat X19 I'm got sitting around the corner waiting for a Dallara body kit, and then decide what to do for a power plant. I have the M Roadster Z3. I always enjoyed having a lot of cars, and like I said, each one had stories and people, but I have to be honest and say nothing has brought me more driving pleasure than the Lotus 7s. It's just a a wonderful feel and a wonderful group of people. Through Facebook, I was able to connect with a number of Lotus 7 drivers, several of them in England, like Ben Meakin, that have home builts and strikers and tigers, so many different brands and so many things in common. And not only do they enjoy talking about their cars and asking questions and learning from each other, they also share the experience of drives. They'll send me videos of drives they have, and I'll send them videos from here in the States, from Tail of the Dragon or different roads that we run. Ben's hopefully is going to make it over to the States in the next year, and I'm hoping that we can actually make it over to see him in England, my wife and I, on one of our trips over to Europe. Met some wonderful people through the Lotus 7 experience and sports car racing in general, but it's I don't know. It's funny. If you say you love sports cars in the 60s, whoever you met, you had a lot in common with. But the world's become so splintered in so many different subcategories of sports cars that you can meet two people that have the same car, but because there's 10 years difference between them, they don't have much to talk about. Lotus 7 drivers have the link of a period of almost 60 years that they could own a Lotus 7 of any model over a 60-year period, and they all still have something to talk about.
Yeah, that's right. That's absolutely right.
Sure do. Awesome, Ted. So you're welcome to stick around on this big broadcast here.
Sure.
We're on virtual and socially distanced sevens. We're going to switch over to SevenSpot Gym over in South Surrey, BC. I should mention, by the way, Ted, whereabouts are you?
Greenville, South Carolina.
Okay, great. And both SevenSpot Jim and myself are up here in British Columbia, Canada. I'm in New Westminster. He's in South Surrey, and there he is now outside. Let's get this, bring him up full screen. Look at that. There it is.
Beautiful.
Talk to us, Jim. Actually, that almost looks like a still image. It's almost as if his feed has frozen on us.
Uh-oh.
Paging SevenSpot Jim. Well, at least everybody knows it's a real live broadcast. It's right now. It's 11:18 Pacific on this Sunday morning, July 5th, 2020. Should mention that. So I think we're just getting that still image right now, the frozen image of Jim's car. But and if I do that, it doesn't really work well. Oh, there we go. How's that? Now we can see his whole car, and we can see us too. Oh,
there
I think
we go.
We got Jim as a he's beside himself there.
Hi guys. We've got a very weak signal here. Unfortunately, out here in South Surrey, the Wi-Fi is what I've got, because the data here is, I can't use data. Just there's no towers. I'm right close to the border, and the best coverage is on the other side of the line. But anyway, I'm going to flip the camera around just so you can have a quick look. There's what I've got. It's basically a low-cost derivative,
great,
and made by Demon Motorsport, a Canadian kit. It does have a Hayabusa engine, and Ted knows they're quick. You get from 0 to 60 really quick, in less than 3.5 seconds. And the powertrain on this basically is, as I mentioned, the Hayabusa, but for the low-cost salvaged parts from other vehicles, it basically is a Ford Thunderbird from the 2001 era. And so we have Wilwood brakes up front. The spindles are Thunderbird. The rack is from a Toyota truck. The differential is a T-Bird, fully independent, double wishbone all the way around, and it's fully adjustable. So it's a dandy little package.
Very nice, Jim. I noticed one thing, though, when we went for a ride on a particularly hot day last summer. Not only was it fast riding in the car, but it was a very fast sunburn on my head, too. Because there was
I don't know what to say about that. I could say wear a hat, but you probably lose it.
Well, I had a hat with me, but I was smart enough to take it off and hold on to it so that it wouldn't go flying. but unfortunately my head
Yeah.
got a nice burn. But it was still a very exciting ride. That is a crazy fast
Yeah,
little
I
car.
enjoyed it. Now, I know the Wi-Fi is bad here, but I wanted to do this stream with all three of us because I think it's a great way to introduce what we're going to be doing in the future, because we're looking forward to doing an awful lot more of these. And it's as I said many times, one thing about SevenSpot is, as Ted just said, owning one of these cars is a unique experience, but it's also with SevenSpot, what we've got is a watering hole where everybody can come and have a good time, have a laugh, have a chat, without letting our brands get in the way. And I just love it.
Awesome. Well, thanks for that, Jim. It worked.
Well, it did
Actually,
work,
it was
and
pretty
I
cool.
wanted to, Ted, I wanted to say thank you to you. That was what you've provided is a wealth of background that we really love, and we hope to hear an awful lot more in the future from you.
Super.
I mean, we got to change that from Ted Theodore to maybe SevenSpot Ted. What do you think about that, Phil?
Sounds like a winner to me. I did want to add you mentioned about your Hayabusa. One of the things that really fascinated me about the Hayabusa, I raced a Formula Jedi English race car for a while, very light, very nimble, had a Honda Firehawk motor in it. I loved it, very quick, but the motor blew at about 80 miles an hour on the backstretch, and I had fire coming out underneath the car for about 8 feet. I found out that was really common with motorcycle engines, and I said, that's it, no more motorcycle engine cars. Somebody told me about the Megabusa and said, when you put a Hayabusa engine in, you'll never have to worry about it as long as you don't rev it over 8,000 revs, and there's not a lot of power above that anyway. They were right.
That's right.
The Hayabusa engine is a wonderful power plant. I know a lot of people prefer a Z-Tech. A lot of people prefer a twin cam like I have in the purple Westfield here. There's a lot of different choices. The S2000 engines are popular, but I tell you, the Megabusa, the power it provides for the weight that it does and the ability to take a beating. I never had a race car that I ran the tar out of, put it in the garage, and it sat till the next event. Did basic maintenance, and it lasted years.
It's kind of like a tank, and what I like about it is the engine and the transmission weigh 186 pounds.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, I think we're ready to wrap it up.
I'm all for it.
All right, thanks, Ted.
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate it.
I'm SevenSpot Phil, and this has been Virtual and Socially Distant Sevens, a live broadcast from sevenspot.ca. Have a great weekend.
Take care.
Thanks, Phil.